Gosh dang, man. Yesterday afternoon, so I did the 25-mile day in the Saucony Ride 18. It was the first time I was able to come out here and chat without having the giant jacket. I think my guy Tom said, no furry hooded parka today, but during the breakdown in the morning, I did have it on. So seems like this is probably the coldest winter we've had down here in Charlotte since I've lived here. It's been 20s, lows in the 20s American, which is -3, 4, and highs of 40 American, which is +3, 4 European. So very cold out here, but we're going to be talking training talk Tuesday. I'm going on a trip this week, so I'm trying to film a few things beforehand. I was grinding out those long vlogs. We did a 25-mile day yesterday in the Saucony Ride 18. Awesome shoe, by the way, if you're looking for a solid daily trainer. Right now I'm in the New Balance 1080 V13. Put 300 miles on those guys, and now they're my kicking around town winter shoes. But we're going to talk about marathon training today, and specifically how I would train for my first marathon. So I've been thinking a lot about training plans. I've been studying for the past 2-3 years. I've been studying training and figuring out what's the optimal way to train. That's why I run. Well, there's a few reasons why I run so many miles. I just love running, and I love the mental benefits of it, and I love advancing, but I also love using my own training as an experimentation ground, as a way to test different styles, different workouts, different strategies. And so with having now 5 years of experience running, I first started running again as an adult. I went through few different phases running. When I was in high school, I would run a mile to the gym during the summertime and mile back home. I was always more of a lifter. In college, I lived with my brother out in Oakland for one summer, and I interned in San Francisco, and I actually got into running then in college, and I worked my way up to 7-mile long runs, but I didn't stick with it as a hobby, commitment until 2020. It was actually a month before COVID. Charlie and I were over at the Whitewater Center. If you guys live in the Carolinas, you probably know the Whitewater Center. It's the U.S. National Whitewater Training Center. So the Whitewater Rapids team, did you guys know that's even a thing? Whitewater Rafting Rapids team trains there. And they also have just so many different things. They just built a climbing wall for kids. They have it's almost like a lazy river in the middle, except it's not lazy. It's fake whitewater. And then they also have the river over there and hundreds of miles of trails. So they were doing a trail race, and we were over there just hanging out, and we saw that there was going to be a trail 5K in March 2020. So we signed up, and I started running for that, and the rest is history. I got hooked on it. So that race actually got canceled because March 2020, you probably remember what happened then. It was COVID, everything shut down. So I never did do that race, but that's what got me on this journey of mileage, running for my health, and realizing the mental benefits, especially during COVID, right? I think a lot of people came to running during that time too, because maybe before we were more socializing, going out partying, and everything shut down. It was COVID, and gosh dang, all we can do is sit here all day on our screens. We might as well get out for a jog for 30 minutes to an hour. So that's how it started. I worked my way up. 2022 is when I did my first marathon, and before that, I would only run a few times a week. I would typically do a 3-mile run, a 5-mile run, and a 7-mile run. And occasionally I would work up to doing 10-mile long runs for that 7-mile run. So roughly anywhere from 10 to 20 miles per week for a few years there. And then in 2022, I started taking it more seriously. I also was going to a CrossFit gym at the time, and overall was building more volume, intensity, and got excited by the idea of doing a marathon. And so looking back at that training, I had a coach. I had no idea what structured training was. I knew about intervals. I tried to do an 800-meter repeat workup by myself, but I didn't have a lot of guidance, and I would do things differently now. So that's what I want to talk about today. 3 things I would do if I were training for my first marathon again, and how I would approach training for the marathon. And the difference between the half marathon and the marathon is not just 13.1 miles versus 26.2 miles. it's also this difference in how we approach the distance and how we think about it. The reason people are so enchanted and enthralled by the marathon is because it seems just beyond our capability, just beyond our reach. For a lot of people out there, if you're a reasonably fit young adult with a background in sports, you might be going for a sub 4-hour marathon, or maybe a sub 3 marathon. That was actually my goal at the time, sub 3 marathon. Or maybe your goal is just to finish if you're at a different stage in life, or if you don't want to put the pressure on yourself. But the idea of the marathon is this almost impossible thing that we make possible, and that we know is possible because our friend did it, our cousin did it, our coworker did it. And so, first tip here, making the impossible a lot more possible, is to build a big base. The entire goal of marathon training is to make the distance feel manageable, and the way we do that is by extending our aerobic capacity over time. So if we think to what I just said a few minutes ago, right? Before I was training for the marathon, when I was running mostly for health and fitness, I was doing a 3-mile run, a 5-mile run, and a 7-mile run, an average of 10 to 20 miles per week. What I would suggest, if you want to train for a marathon, is to work your way up to 40 miles per week. And I'm going to outline what the ideal way to do this is. 40 miles per week, and if you could hold that for 6 months, your base will be in a great place. Now, the main barrier to most people working their way up, well, of course we have time, but outside of that is going to be strengthening our body. So the aerobic capacity, and when I say aerobic capacity, that's how good our body is at running these endurance paces, making our body more efficient at pumping oxygen. When we run aerobically, we are mainly powering our muscles with oxygen. There's lots of different fuel systems in the body. We're also burning more fat than carbs when we're running aerobically, and the body has nearly unlimited stores of fat. No matter what your body fat percentage is, you store a lot of fat in your body. You don't store so many carbs. You only store about 2,000 calories worth of carbs in your muscles at any time, which will get burned off quickly if we are not aerobically fit, because the effort goes up, the body's not used to it, we start going anaerobic, and we start quickly burning off that energy. So one of the main barriers and blockers to people running the marathon strong is hitting the wall, running out of carbs, slowing down. And in order to prevent that, we want to build a strong aerobic base, a lot of aerobic miles, so that we can run at a lower effort, not just perceived effort in terms of how hard we're breathing and what it feels like, but a lower effort for our energy systems in the body, so we're not burning off all those carbs. The barrier to building that base, so there's a barrier to running the marathon strong, and then there's a barrier to also doing what we need to do to train to run the marathon strong, is going to be our body, our muscles. Forget all the talk about the fuel system. Just think about when people say, oh, running hurts my knees, or running hurts my hips, or having shin splints. That's because your body is not used to the pounding of training. And if I were to just, again, running 3, 5, and 7-mile runs, maybe you're doing that right now if you're running just for fun, or maybe you're only running a 5K 3 to 4 times a week, running 10 to 12 miles per week. Your body's not ready to just jump up to 40 miles. So I would suggest looking at my video, how to run high mileage without getting injured. I think that's what it's called. Just search high mileage in my name and you'll find it after this. And I gave 3 rules on how to build mileage safely, but I would take your time using those rules there to build up to 40 miles per week. That's going to be roughly 6 hours of running. I mapped this out last night. I did a quick calculation. Roughly 6 hours of running per week. That's the target. This is not scientifically proven. This is completely anecdotal. But if you do that for 6 months and you strengthen your body, you strengthen the muscles, you build the neuromuscular coordination of running. And we're not just talking about the aerobic system here. We're talking about the strength of our muscles and tendons and joints and how everything feels when we're running. We're then going to be able to prepare ourselves better for the stress of marathon training. And so that brings me to tip number 2 here, what I would do if I were running my first marathon. And this is all about goal time and goal pace. So what I have found is to have a successful, not just race, but training block, it is so key to have a goal in mind. Even if your goal is just finishing, I would highly suggest to pick. Oh, that's crazy. We still have the Christmas lights on, and they were on. You know, there's this nice warm vibe behind the camera, and then they just went off. So now it's cold. My fingers are cold. I should have double gloved it just for this training talk. But pick a goal time, because what that's going to do is when we get into the specifics of training itself, and say we're training at 40, 50 miles a week during the actual marathon training block, and now a race specific period, it can be 10 weeks, right? Some of the elites only train 6 to 8 weeks of targeted, I'm trying to develop this specific fitness system to take a jump on my fitness to race faster. But the business of base building, the business of base building, that never ends, baby. That's why I'm out here putting up 25-mile days. That's why we're out here putting up 100-mile weeks. We want to maintain that aerobic fitness and strengthen our body. You have to be a strong runner to consistently put up 20-mile long runs or consistently put up 2-hour runs. And so part of the system of training needs to be picking that goal time, picking that goal pace, because that will allow you to train very targeted during that last likely 16 to 18 week block. And that's what I would suggest most people do. Pick a 16 to 18 week plan. And here's the thing. Most stock marathon training plans, not Jack Daniels, but if you look at the Higdons of the world, if you get some beginner's marathon training plan off of Runner's World, if you even that app, I'm not going to say its gosh dang name, they're enemies of mine now because I'm launching training plans soon. Don't come up here talking about Blanca. If you look at any standard marathon, I'm trying to be better, bro. I'm trying to be better. I need to drink some decaf green tea or something and just chill out. But here's the thing. If I take the pressure off, then I'm not going to be dropping daily. This is what... If you look at any stock marathon training plan, 4 to 6 weeks of it are going to be ramping mileage. If you have a high base, you don't have to waste time ramping mileage. You can train at that higher mileage level and you can get more gains and you can be running harder and faster for more of the training plan. If you're spending half of the time just building up your mileage, just building up that base, you're not going to be able to make as many gains in the back half of the plan. But if you're training at 40 miles a week, and by the way, the other things I would do are 2-hour long run. That's pretty much it in terms of building a big base. Yeah, 2-hour long run, and if you can get one 90-minute midweek run, you're going to be golden. And that's 3.5 hours right there, the 2-hour long run, 90-minute long run. And then the other 2.5 hours, just spread that out. Four 45-minute runs. Yeah, 4 50-minute runs, roughly, throughout the rest of the week. So working up to 6 days per week. And again, with the building a base, tip 1, we're going to get more comfortable at running nearly every day. At running 5 to 6 times per week. And if you want to have a successful marathon, man, you have to be running 5 to 6 times per week. It is really challenging to run a strong race running 3 to 4 days a week. You can do it, especially if you have a stronger base built up. But if you're just coming to it, you're going to be so much more comfortable running that marathon strong and finishing strong if you strengthen your body to run 5 or 6 days a week. Because having your body tolerate the running of 5 to 6 days per week and recover and not feel sore, that's a good indicator that you're ready to run the 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours that you need to be out there. It doesn't matter your actual goal finishing time, but if you can run 5 to 6 days a week with strength, that means your body is good. Your body's good and ready to go. If you can only run 3 to 4 days a week and it doesn't feel that great, it's going to be harder. Now, I know and this is the caveat too, I'm speaking from my personal experience. This is what I would have done. I was in my 20s. I still am in my 20s. I'm 29. Right? If you're older, if you're in your 50s or 60s, it's going to be different. I don't have any experience being in my 50s or 60s. So experience is the best teacher. I'm speaking from my personal experience. I also played sports my entire life growing up. So I was lucky to have a strong general fitness and strength base. So that's the other thing I would say, right? If you're coming into this marathon completely sedentary, you played cricket 12 years ago and you haven't touched a dang barbell or swiped a key card at a gym since then, the 6 months of 40 miles, I would even say, hey, run a half marathon first, take a year to build up to the marathon. So it's really going to depend on where your fitness is. And this is what I was saying about the marathon is impossible, that's why we want to do it thing. I think even me included, a lot of us think of it as this really cool goal. And I'm not going to say don't run a marathon, but you'll have a lot more fun and you can set yourself up for the marathon if you wait to do it until you can at least feel that running 40 miles a week is manageable. So if the idea of running 40 miles a week in 3 to 4 months from now sounds absurd because you've had a more sedentary lifestyle because of family, because of work, because you just haven't prioritized fitness, or you didn't like fitness and running until now, then there's no pressure. There's no reason to have to do the marathon. And doing a marathon doesn't make anybody a gosh dang real runner. I'm getting off track here, but I just want to say that, right? You don't have to do a marathon to be considered legit. It's just the longest typical race distance. Sign up for a 5K, sign up for a 10K. So yeah, you don't have to do it, but you'll be a lot more successful at it if that is your goal, if you give yourself time to build that base. And again, if you're sedentary, that base can include strength training, general strength training. That can include biking, that can include whatever to prepare your body for the stresses of those 40 miles a week. So point being here, if you're coming at this from zero, I would give yourself as much time as possible. Do a 6-month period of just general training. Again, I'm not huge on strength training for myself because I don't need it given where I am in fitness. I do more running specific strength training out here. I do a lot of hill running. I do hill sprints. I do faster workouts. But if you're coming to this from zero, give yourself time to get in the gym, do some general fitness exercises, some heavy squats, deadlifts, working up to that while also working on the running. And that will strengthen the body in general. Yeah, picking the goal is so key. And that's the whole point of tip number 2 here. You got to pick the goal and pick a realistic goal. And part of that goal is not just the goal time or goal pace, it's the goal date. It's the goal date, right? So if I'm coming to this from zero and I know I want to run a marathon, I would not sign up for one in 6 months. If I had never run, or if I'm running 2 miles a week right now, I wouldn't personally sign up for a marathon in 6 months. I would give myself a year. But if you do have a solid general fitness base, then doing it in 6 months will be good. And again, I'm not trying to gatekeep here. It's hard to run a marathon in men. I faded so hard in the back half. So my goal was a 2:59 marathon. I ran roughly a 120 something half marathon during that build. I ran a 38-minute 10K. So my fitness, I also ran a 6:15 pace 15K, which is a weird distance. We're roughly 10 miles. So my fitness was there to run a sub 3. I ended up running a 3:19. So the marathon is just really hard, especially for the first time. And it's fun and rewarding, but if you want to give yourself the best chance to run strong, you want as many 2-hour long runs under your belt as possible, as many 4-hour or 40-mile weeks under your belt as possible. That's going to give you the best chance of success, and that's how I would have done it in the past too. I would have given myself more time to ramp up if I could. All right, last tip here, third tip on what I would do. It's all about the long run. So this is what I was thinking about earlier. The entire system of marathon training is designed to support your race pace. So typically, a lot of the common systems will set it up into 3 phases of training. So you'll have your base period, which again, as I was just talking about, for 4 to 6 weeks, you're ramping up your mileage, you're getting up to that cruising altitude, whether that's 40 or 50 miles per week. In the middle period, you're working on a lot of lactate threshold pace. The theory is that threshold or lactate threshold is one of the main limiters of endurance running. So we want to train that system to clear the lact. Now there's various theories on whether or not that's true, but we want to run a fast pace. I think about it common sense wise, right? So lactate threshold is roughly the pace you can run for 1 hour in a racing environment. You want to work on that fast race pace. That's going to make your slightly slower race paces feel easier. That's just the simplest way to think about it. And then the last 6 weeks are typically more race specific. So what I would do if I were training for my first marathon is work up to those 2-hour long runs, run them consistently, and start working in race pace. Start thinking about goal race pace during those 2-hour long runs as early as possible. Now, that's not saying you need to start doing crazy Jack Daniel style 14-mile tempos during those long runs, but if you can treat your long run as the most important run of the week, that's going to make marathon training a lot more successful. So different plans will have different emphasis on Tuesday track day workout, Thursday threshold workout, speed workouts of the week, but for me, the long run is that most important workout. That's what's going to prepare you for the race the best. And a lot of the beginner training plans out there, the stock ones, aren't putting intensity into the long runs. You'll have your workouts and then you'll have your long runs. But the race is a long workout. So we also need to treat our training long run as a long workout as well. So simple things you can do 800-meter repeats at marathon race pace in between with some recovery. You can even just do strides within those long runs, but get your body used to doing some intensity during those after you've built a 10-week streak of doing 2-hour long runs, or 8 out of the last 10 weeks. You don't need to do streaks if you're not comfortable with them, but 8 out of the last 10 weeks you've done 2-hour long runs. So focus on building that base. Pick a goal time, make sure it's reasonable, realistic, and then really hone in on that long run. Make that long run the most important run of the week. Make that the most important thing you do during that week if you're seriously wanting to attack the marathon. Right? Don't drink the night before the long run. Make sure you get at least 6.5 hours of sleep, if not 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Make sure you fuel up before that long run. So I use the Morton drink mix. You can use whatever carb source. Make sure you have a solid breakfast. Make sure everything is good to go for that long run so you can attack it. And sometimes attacking it is just running it at a standard relaxed pace. And you have to run 2 hours at a relaxed pace before you can run it at a hard pace. But get in the mind frame of the long run is mission critical. The long run is what I need to do to be successful. The long run is my best friend. So that's what I'd do if I was training for my first marathon. I gotta go to the airport here. Yeah, I think we're gonna be right on time. I appreciate you guys. If you like this training talk, make sure you are signed up for the Supwell app. Best community of hobby joggers out there. Here's the thing, if I don't say it at the beginning, I usually forget, but I didn't forget today. I did not forget today. So sign up for the Supwell app. Best community of hobby joggers out there. We're doing a community challenge right now. I actually did a 12-mile run on the treadmill this morning. We have a prize for whoever does the most treadmill runs. I think my guy, James Northington, wants to win it. We also have prizes for coldest run. So if you're running in some negative 10 degrees American, you could win. You could win a prize for that. We have, what else do we have? Best dressed. Yeah, my guy Charles ran a mile PR in his wedding suit. We have a few other prizes too. And if you just post a run during the community challenge, you'll get entered to win a free shoe of your choice. Plus, Supwell app is the best place for hobby joggers. And we have the best gently used shoe marketplace out there. All right. I appreciate you guys. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.